Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Today we're uncovering one of the most shocking and heartbreaking scandals in the history of Fiancé. Jenny Slatten and Sumit Singh were once seen as the perfect example of love conquering all odds. But behind the cameras, a far darker truth was waiting to be exposed, according to our confidential sources. Sumit Singh was secretly involved in multiple romantic relationships with other women. He wasn't just a husband, he was living a double life. From secret restaurant meetings to late-night rendezvous, Sumit's hidden affairs painted a shocking picture of betrayal. And the story doesn't end there. Sources reveal that Sumit became entangled in nearly $1 of online gambling debt. As he failed to repay the debt, a lawsuit was filed against him, and he was subsequently arrested. Jenny, overwhelmed by the lies, the betrayal, and the financial disaster, made the most heartbreaking decision of her life. She divorced Sumit Singh. But Jenny's story didn't end in tragedy. In a twist no one saw coming, she found love again and became engaged to a man named Jacob, starting a brand new chapter in her life. So grab a seat, because this is going to be a roller coaster ride through betrayal, heartbreak, downfall, and redemption. This is the shocking truth about Jenny Slatten and Sumit Singh. Before the scandal, before the heartbreak, there was love, and it was a love that captured the hearts of millions of viewers across the globe. Jenny Slatten, a warm and kind-hearted woman from California, met Sumit Singh, a younger man from India, through social media. What began as casual online chats quickly turned into something much deeper. Despite the age difference of nearly 3 decades, Jenny and Sumit found comfort in each other's words, laughter in each other's stories, and hope in each other's presence. Their connection blossomed, and soon Jenny decided to take the biggest leap of her life. She left behind her home, her family, and her familiar world in the United States to move to India and be with the man she loved. Fans of Fiancé, the other way, watched every step of their journey. The cultural differences, the disapproving family, the endless roadblocks. Jenny and Sumit faced them all with what seemed like unshakable love. Jenny fought loneliness, isolation, and financial insecurity in a foreign land just to stand by Sumit's side. Sumit, on the other hand, promised her a lifetime of devotion. Despite the challenges, the couple managed to marry, defying critics who thought their relationship would never last. For many, Jenny and Sumit symbolized hope. They were proof that true love could survive anything: distance, age, culture, and even family pressure. Their story was inspirational, moving, and heartwarming. But as the cameras faded and reality settled in, a different story began to unfold, one that no one could have predicted. At first, Jenny believed her marriage to Sumit was built on trust and honesty. She had sacrificed everything to be with him: her comfort, her stability, and even her relationships back home. She clung to the belief that her love was enough to overcome any obstacle, but soon whispers began to spread. It started with small things: the late-night phone calls, the sudden need for privacy, the frequent excuses to leave the house at odd hours. Jenny noticed Sumit becoming distant, less attentive, and more distracted. His warm words and affectionate gestures slowly turned into vague explanations and cold silences. At first, Jenny brushed it off. She told herself that marriage was full of ups and downs, and that perhaps Sumit was just stressed. She wanted to believe in the man she had fought so hard to keep, but behind the curtain of their marriage, rumors were circulating in hushed voices. Neighbors claimed they had seen Sumit out at local restaurants, not once, but multiple times, sitting across the table from women Jenny had never met. Confidential sources whispered that Sumit was leading a double life, meeting women in secret while assuring Jenny he was working late or with friends. For Jenny, the idea was unthinkable. She had stood by him through every trial, every family rejection, every hardship. The notion that he could betray her love was almost impossible to accept, and yet the signs were undeniable. Friends of the couple began to ask quiet questions. Why was Sumit always unreachable at night? Why did he guard his phone so fiercely, even taking it to the bathroom? And why did his explanations sound rehearsed, as though he had told the same story too many times before? The whispers grew louder. Screenshots of late-night text messages allegedly sent by Sumit began to circulate online. Photos of him dining with other women emerged. Each piece of evidence made the perfect image of their marriage start to crack. Jenny, desperate to protect her heart, tried to silence the doubts. She convinced herself that people were jealous, that the gossip was fueled by envy of their unique love story. But deep down, a storm of suspicion was brewing, one that would soon explode into undeniable truth. Because the rumors weren't just rumors, they were the first glimpse into the double life Sumit was leading, a life that would shatter Jenny's world. The whispers of infidelity soon turned into something far more undeniable. Jenny could no longer ignore the warning signs, the late-night disappearances, the secretive phone calls, the way Sumit avoided eye contact whenever questions came too close. But then the truth began to spill out. According to confidential sources close to the couple, Sumit was not just casually meeting one woman. He was juggling multiple romantic relationships at the same time. While Jenny believed she was his one and only, Sumit was weaving a dangerous web of lies. One woman described evenings spent with Sumit in hidden cafes on the outskirts of town, where he promised her a future full of adventure. Another revealed that he would take her to popular restaurants, always sitting in the darkest corners to avoid recognition. A third source claimed that Sumit had been seen in the company of a younger woman at a shopping mall, laughing and holding her hand as if they were in a carefree romance. Each account painted the same picture. Sumit was living two lives. In one, he was the devoted husband, smiling beside Jenny for the cameras. In the other, he was the charming bachelor, offering affection to women who had no idea of the storm brewing behind the scenes. For Jenny, the betrayal was almost too heavy to process. She had sacrificed her old life in California, braved cultural rejection, and stood proudly beside Sumit, even when the world doubted them. To discover that he had divided his heart and his time among multiple women was like a knife cutting through her trust. But what shocked those closest to the couple was not just the affairs themselves. It was the boldness with which Sumit carried them out. He was seen at well-known restaurants, walking through crowded streets, and even using his own phone for secret conversations. It was almost as if he believed he would never be caught. And yet the evidence piled higher. Screenshots of text exchanges revealed sweet promises he had made to these women. Witnesses confirmed spotting him in intimate moments that left little doubt. Slowly, the image of Jenny and Sumit's fairy tale marriage began to crumble in the public eye. The revelation of multiple women in his life was only the beginning, because behind this shocking betrayal lay an even darker truth, one that had nothing to do with love and everything to do with money, as the puzzle pieces of Sumit's double life began to fall into place. One detail stood out above the rest, his secret meetings at restaurants across the city. According to eyewitness accounts, these weren't occasional slip-ups or random encounters. They were carefully planned rendezvous. Sumit was seen entering dimly lit cafes, quiet rooftop lounges, and hidden restaurants that catered to couples who wanted discretion. He often arrived first, scanning the room with a cautious eye before settling into a corner table. Minutes later, a woman would appear, sometimes dressed casually, sometimes in elegant outfits that suggested a romantic evening. They would share laughter, whisper across the table, and order meals that stretched into hours. One restaurant owner, who spoke under condition of anonymity, revealed that Sumit had become a regular guest with different companions. He always requested the farthest table from the entrance, the owner said, and he never stayed less than 2 hours. It was obvious he didn't want to be noticed. Another witness described a particularly telling scene. Sumit sitting across from a woman, gently holding her hand while Jenny was at home waiting for him. The image of this betrayal haunted those who had once admired his loyalty. Jenny, meanwhile, began to notice patterns. Sumit would leave the house in the evenings, offering vague explanations about work, family obligations, or errands. He returned late at night, often smelling faintly of food or perfume. When she asked questions, his answers came too quickly, rehearsed as though he had practiced them in advance. The truth was undeniable. These weren't business dinners or innocent outings. They were dates carefully concealed from Jenny, but obvious to anyone who happened to look closely. And as these secret meetings continued, Sumit's confidence seemed to grow. He became bolder, less cautious, and more reckless. He believed he could balance his marriage with Jenny while indulging in romantic affairs elsewhere. But little did he know the consequences of his actions were about to snowball into something much larger. Because behind the candlelit dinners and whispered promises, Sumit was hiding another secret, one that didn't just threaten his marriage, but his entire future. A secret tied not to love, but to money, and to a dangerous addiction that would bring everything crashing down. While whispers and eyewitness accounts hinted at betrayal, it was the digital trail that confirmed everything. For a long time, Jenny trusted Sumit completely. She didn't snoop through his phone, nor did she question his private conversations. She believed that respect and love meant giving him space. But as the rumors intensified, Sumit's phone became the center of suspicion. According to sources close to the couple, Sumit guarded his phone as if it held his entire life. He slept with it under his pillow, carried it even to the bathroom, and became defensive whenever Jenny asked simple questions. His paranoia was obvious, and it raised more questions than it answered. Then the leaks began. Screenshots started circulating among the couple's acquaintances, allegedly showing Sumit in conversations with other women. The messages weren't subtle. They were filled with affectionate nicknames, heart emojis, and promises of secret meetings. One message read, "I can't wait to see you tomorrow night. Don't worry, she'll never know." But the most damning evidence came in the form of photos. Leaked images surfaced of Sumit dining at upscale restaurants with women who were clearly not Jenny. In one photo, he was seen leaning across the table, smiling warmly, while holding the hand of a woman dressed in a red sari. Another showed him walking out of a mall, carrying shopping bags alongside a younger woman. These images spread quickly, not just among their circle of acquaintances, but across online fan forums. The couple, who had once been celebrated as proof that love could conquer all, had suddenly become the subject of scandal. Fans who had admired Jenny and Sumit's devotion were now questioning everything. Jenny, devastated, confronted Sumit, but instead of reassurance, she was met with excuses. He claimed the photos were innocent, the messages misunderstood. Yet the evidence was too overwhelming, too consistent to dismiss as coincidence. Behind every leaked photo, behind every exposed message, was a man who had promised the world to Jenny, but was living another life behind her back. And as painful as the betrayal was, this was only the beginning. Because the same phone that exposed his affairs would also reveal something far darker, a hidden addiction that would drag both Sumit and Jenny into chaos. While the leaked messages and photos confirmed Sumit's betrayal of Jenny's trust, there was still one secret he guarded more fiercely than anything else. A secret that didn't just threaten his marriage, it threatened his entire future. It started subtly. Jenny noticed odd charges appearing on their shared accounts. Small withdrawals here, unaccounted for payments there. When she asked Sumit, he brushed it off with vague excuses, just paying a friend back or covering a quick expense. Jenny wanted to believe him, so she let it go. But behind closed doors, a darker truth was unfolding. According to confidential sources, Sumit had developed a dangerous addiction to online gambling. What began as casual play on digital poker tables and roulette apps slowly spiraled into a relentless obsession. He was betting large sums late into the night, convinced that his next win would solve all his problems. The thrill of risk became his escape from stress, from responsibility, and even from the guilt of his affairs. But like most addictions, it was a trap. Every win led to bigger bets. Every loss pushed him deeper into desperation. Soon, the amounts were staggering. Within months, Sumit had accumulated nearly $1 in gambling debt. Creditors began calling. Online platforms froze his accounts until payments were made. He borrowed from friends, pawned valuables, and used money Jenny thought was being saved for their future. For Jenny, the realization was crushing. She had fought to build a new life in India, believing she and Sumit were working towards stability. Instead, she discovered that her husband had gambled away not just their savings, but their security. The addiction explained everything. The late-night phone calls, the guarded phone, the missing money. Even some of the secret meetings at restaurants weren't with women, but with shady figures connected to his debts. But gambling isn't just a private vice. It leaves a paper trail, one that creditors and legal authorities eventually uncover. And soon Sumit's hidden addiction would move from a personal disaster to a public scandal, one that no excuse could cover up. Jenny had already been betrayed by his affairs. Now she was staring at a financial catastrophe that threatened to destroy everything she had sacrificed to be with him. The stage was set for the next downfall, lawsuits, legal battles, and the shattering of the life they had once promised each other. The truth about Sumit's gambling addiction was devastating enough, but the scale of the damage left Jenny reeling. This wasn't a few dollars lost in careless bets. It wasn't a phase that could be swept under the rug. It was a disaster that had spurred far out of control. According to financial records later revealed by confidential sources, Sumit had racked up nearly $1 in gambling debt. The numbers were staggering. A mountain of losses spread across online poker rooms, digital roulette apps, and high-stakes sports betting platforms. At first he managed to conceal it. He borrowed from friends, claiming he needed short-term loans. He pawned jewelry and electronics, quietly selling off anything of value. He even convinced Jenny to withdraw from her limited savings, telling her it was for household expenses or emergency bills. But debt has a way of catching up. Soon, the creditors came calling. Messages flooded his phone, demanding payment. Emails threatened legal action. Some even showed up in person, warning him that if he didn't prepay soon, the consequences would be severe. Jenny, horrified, discovered the full extent of the financial disaster when one creditor finally knocked on their door. The man demanded repayment, holding paperwork that listed Sumit's name, the amounts owed, and the overdue penalties. It was undeniable. Jenny's world collapsed in that moment. She had left her country, her comfort, and her stability to build a future with Sumit, only to realize that he had gambled away not just their money, but her trust. The $1 wasn't just a number. It represented years of struggle, sacrifice, and survival that had been erased by reckless choices. The couple who once symbolized perseverance on Day Fiancé were now drowning in debt, scandal, and betrayal. And as if the debt itself wasn't enough, the legal consequences soon followed. Online gambling platforms filed lawsuits against Sumit for unpaid balances. The case escalated quickly, dragging him into a legal battle that would expose his darkest secrets to the world. The man who once charmed millions of fans with his devotion to Jenny was now facing the harsh reality of debt, lawsuits, and eventual arrest. And for Jenny, the heartbreak was only beginning because love can forgive mistakes. But could it survive betrayal, deception, and financial ruin on this scale? Debt collectors can be avoided for a while. Phone calls can be ignored, emails deleted. Even friends turned away. But the legal system is harder to escape. As Sumit's gambling debts reached their peak, online platforms and creditors decided they had waited long enough. Formal complaints were filed. Summonses arrived at his door. What had once been whispered gossip and quiet threats was now written in black and white. Sumit Singh was being sued. The lawsuits were relentless. Each one detailed unpaid balances, broken agreements, and evidence of his gambling transactions. The courts began to build a case against him, and his name started appearing on official records, no longer as a beloved reality TV star, but as a man drowning in financial ruin. Jenny watched in shock as lawyers arrived with documents she could barely understand. She had never imagined that her love story, once celebrated on television, would end with court papers piling on the dining table. The shame was unbearable. Neighbors whispered, friends distanced themselves, and online fans, who had once cheered for Jenny and Sumit, began flooding forums with outrage. But the worst was yet to come. When Sumit failed to appear for one of his hearings, authorities escalated the matter. A warrant was issued for his arrest, and soon the unthinkable happened. Sumit Singh, the man Jenny had fought for so fiercely, was taken into custody. According to eyewitnesses, the arrest was humiliating. Officers arrived at their residence, handcuffing him in front of stunned neighbors. Jenny, overwhelmed and trembling, could do nothing but watch as her husband was led away. The image of Sumit, once her dream partner, now reduced to a criminal in handcuffs, broke something deep inside her. The arrest made headlines. Tabloids plastered his mugshot across the covers. Fans who once defended him were now calling for Jenny to leave. The scandal was no longer private. It was a public spectacle dissected by strangers around the world. In custody, Sumit faced questions about not only his gambling debts, but also his double life. The leaked messages, the restaurant sightings, the financial ruin, all of it became part of the narrative. For Jenny, this was the breaking point. She had endured the whispers of infidelity. She had forgiven the lies. She had even tried to understand the gambling. But watching her husband taken away in handcuffs was the final straw. The man she had sacrificed everything for had not only betrayed her heart, but destroyed the very foundation of their lives together. And in that moment, Jenny knew their marriage could not survive this. For Jenny Slatten, the sight of Sumit being led away in handcuffs was more than just a shocking moment. It was the collapse of her entire world. This was the man she had sacrificed everything for. She had left her home in California, distanced herself from friends and family, endured loneliness, culture shock, and public judgment, all to build a life with Sumit. And now that life lay in ruins. In the days following his arrest, Jenny withdrew from the world. Neighbors described her as barely leaving the house, curtains drawn tight, lights dimmed. Friends who tried to visit said she was unrecognizable, her normally warm and hopeful demeanor replaced with silence, tears, and exhaustion. According to those close to her, Jenny struggled with feelings of guilt. She questioned whether she had ignored the warning signs, whether she had been blind to the truth that was always in front of her. Every leaked photo, every whispered rumor, every suspicious moment replayed in her mind like a cruel film. The emotional toll was devastating. Jenny had always been the one who believed in love against all odds. She had defended Sumit when others doubted him, stood by his side when even his family resisted, and reassured herself that their bond was worth the fight. To now realize that he had betrayed her trust so completely, both romantically and financially, shattered not just her heart, but her sense of identity. Confidential sources revealed that Jenny confided in a close friend. "I don't even know who he is anymore. The man I thought I loved doesn't exist." Her nights were filled with restless tossing, her days with silent tears. She lost weight, her voice grew faint, and her once cheerful smile disappeared. The emotional breakdown was visible to anyone who had known the Jenny who once glowed with hope. And yet, even in her pain, Jenny faced an impossible decision. Would she continue to fight for Sumit, as she had done for years? Or would she finally accept that the man she once called her soulmate had destroyed any chance of redemption? In her heart, Jenny already knew the answer. Their rest had not just broken her spirit, it had broken their marriage beyond repair. The woman who had been willing to risk everything for love was now preparing for the hardest step of her life, letting go. When news of Sumit's arrest spread, the impact was felt far beyond Jenny. Jenny's family. Her family in the U.S. was devastated. Jenny's daughter, especially, felt betrayed and angry, saying she had warned her mother not to trust Sumit blindly. Sumit's family, Sumit's parents, once against Jenny because of her age, now faced public shame. Neighbors and relatives criticized how Sumit had ruined both his marriage and his family's honor, friends, and community. Friends split between comforting Jenny and admitting they had long seen red flags. Locals who once admired the couple now whispered in pity and judgment. Fans worldwide. Fans reacted with shock and heartbreak. Online debates erupted. Some blamed Sumit. Others questioned Jenny. Hashtags shifted from celebrating their love to demanding justice for Jenny. Under this immense pressure, Jenny, broken and humiliated, prepared to make a life-changing decision. The whispers of infidelity, the crushing weight of gambling debts, the humiliation of Sumit's arrest. All of it had brought Jenny to a breaking point. For weeks, she battled with her emotions, torn between heartbreak and survival. But eventually, she made the hardest decision of her life. Jenny Slatten filed for divorce. It wasn't a quiet choice made behind closed doors. Jenny, who had once defended Sumit to the world, chose to share her truth openly. She issued a statement that shocked fans and broke hearts across the globe. I loved Sumit with all of my heart. I gave up my life to be with him. But love cannot survive betrayal, lies, and destruction. Today, I am choosing myself. Today, I am divorcing Sumit Singh. The announcements sent shockwaves through both her personal circle and the Fiancé fan community.